You've got your lift, and the stairwell door is got access control, and it comes out into a tenancy, which says to me that there is multiple tenants in these buildings. That's perfectly fine. We can still use one system per lot, and then we just split the different tenancies up into areas. So easy to, I guess, achieve through programming. And because there's multiples, we're able to use a certain intercom system. Level 1, level 2. I'm just going to double check how many we've got. 8 handsets. So here's our door stations at the front. We've got one handset here. Another one here on each level, which says to me there's different tenants on those levels. And the roof terrace has no requirement for intercoms up here. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of audio. As a standard, we don't just run audio. So we can now, once we're comfortable with everything here, we go, so intercom system, entry panels. Entry panels provide the following. So the intercom handsets aren't entry panels, so we need to separate those. So we would bring them back. So intercom handsets will be provided at the locations. And then we can use their terminology. And we'll call it, we'll say entry lobby or lift lobby. That's the best way to describe it. So level 1 and level 2, lift lobby. PoE network switches is fine, and then all required cabling, programming, testing, and commissioning. Pretty much all we need for the intercom system. It's pretty basic. And then Cat6, Cat6A data cable has been used for all. So this is one or the other. It can't be both. We wouldn't be running something in Cat6 and then something in Cat6A. And if we have that statement, this statement can't be here. We're saying in this statement, we're saying we've made no allowance for Cat6, Cat6A or optic fiber. And in this statement, we're saying we have used it for all data cable runs. So these are the items that really make this part hard when we're having to go back over all of the documentation to gain some clarity. This is what takes time. So now we're coming back into communications. We're trying to find information within here. If we can't find it quickly in here, it's sometimes even easier just to go straight back to the specifications and try and find it ourselves. Not ideal though. The idea of phase 1 is to produce all of this information and have it ready for someone to then complete phase 2. So this is a VIP system, so we can actually include that in our, so Any and all information is very, very helpful. So they've got commonly iCall. Once again, if this information is here, we need to be including it. The intercom door station shall be a commonly iCall entrance panel with 2-wire and VIP call module. The fact that this is here, it should be included in our scope of works. And then you've got intercom internal unit shall be commonly mini hands free. So we've got information available to us here in the scope of works that we're not including in our scope of works, which is frustrating, and it means that I'm now, or whoever's completing phase 2, is spending lots of time to go through and actually try to find the relevant information. This is all great to have. I'm not finding anything with heaps of clarity here around what sort of cable we're going to use, whether it be Cat6 or Cat6A. I'll have a quick check of the drawings to see whether there's a communication schematic. So this is definitely Cat6A. So you can see that that's very, very clear. Cat6A, Cat6A, Cat6A. And it's communications. So we can, because it's on the communication schematic, we now get rid of this, and we make the statement that no allowance has been made for the Cat6A. Can leave Cat6 in there just so they're clear, and then we get rid of cabling from here because we're not cabling, so all required programming, testing, commissioning. We've got the cabling for security because that's not part of the communications package, but now this makes sense. So no allowance has been made for this or any associated labour as it is assumed to form part of the communications package. So now we've got a statement there that makes sense based on the information that was available. We don't have to make this statement anymore. That statement is fine. We will have a low-level lift interface so that they can call up. So I'm taking that. It's not shown in or potentially noted, but when you have a lift and an intercom and tenancies on upper levels, and the intercom, the lift has access control on it. So when you call from this intercom, if you're going to go up to the upper levels, you're going to need to override the access control to be able to take the passenger to the correct level. So we will need a low-level lift interface included as part of the intercom. So now we've got our intercom system, front doors, and we've got our handsets and PoE network switches, level lift interface, and our discussion around cabling. So in about 20 minutes, it's taken me to then take the information that was provided as part of the scope of works and work through that to come up with a solution where we can now start to actually build the system within the cost centers. So it's very, very important that the scope of works has all this information available. And if we're not sure as to how we get that information, it's about asking the questions, and then I can produce documentation and information to assist. If you don't know, please ask, and yeah, we'll try and get to this point. So the scope of works needs to be complete to make it easy for us to then complete phase 2. So based on all of this, we can now save that, and we move over into the cost centers. So I've already shifted all the cost centers up into a single cost center. I'm just going to do some housekeeping. So I take this name, edit the section, save that. I'm going to rename this now that we know it's in a range inception, and this is Commlit VIP. And I mean, just to be super clear, I'm just taking that information straight from my scope of work. So it's an inner range inception electronic access control system and a Commlit VIP intercom system. And that's it. So into our, I'm actually going to stop this video here before I start this, so it breaks it down into smaller sections. And I'll do the phase 2 within the cost centers in a separate video, but it gives you an understanding of the time it takes when all the information isn't I guess available or isn't produced as part of the scope of works. I was able to go through and find the information. I made a few assumptions and I filled in some gaps based on what we would normally do. And that's where I want to get you to, is to a point where you can fill those same gaps and make those decisions based on some supporting documentation, so that you can go, okay, there's no system nominated. We're going to use an inner range inception because this is a multi-tenant site with no integration to other site, versus a requirement for an inner range integrity system where software is required and potential integration across multiple sites. With an intercom, we have some go-tos. We wouldn't typically go to a Commlit. Commlit is a great system, but it is expensive, so it's hard to use as a standard in the tender market. And so we'll provide the documentation that gives an easy go-to when you're putting together intercoms and also CCTV.